Yo, what's going on, y'all? It's Cone back here again today with another video, and today I want to talk for a little bit about my favorite team, the Oklahoma City Thunder, and what was so fun about this past season and why teams should be really terrified of what the Thunder could do next season and beyond. But real quick before we get into it, I quickly want to shout out my new podcast. Me and my brother used to have a podcast a ton of years ago, and that was way before I even started YouTube, but now we've brought it back. It's on a brand new channel. I'll link it in the description and pin a comment with it as well. Please make sure to go check that out. There's also a Spotify link and an Apple link. You can listen to it too. Definitely make sure to go check that out. That's going to be coming out once, usually more like twice or even 3 times a week. We're going to put shorts on that channel, everything in between. If you want to hear me talk more about hoops alongside my brother, it's going to be a really great time. We're going to have some fun guests on there as well. So definitely make sure to go check that out. But back to the Thunder. OKC had a phenomenal season this past year, going 40-42, finishing 10th in the Western Conference, surpassing basically everybody's expectations, winning their play-in game against the Pelicans in dramatic fashion, led primarily by the backcourt of Gilgeous-Alexander and Josh Giddey. They ended up falling short to the Timberwolves in the second play-in game, missing the playoffs by just a single loss. But overall, it was a very successful season and one that showcased a lot of potential for the guys on this roster as OKC continues to work through this rebuild. We were, of course, led by Gilgeous-Alexander, who had the definition of a breakout season. I think everybody knew that he was an All-Star caliber player, but he went from having never been an All-Star officially to making his first All-Star game, being second in most improved player talks, making All-NBA first team, and finishing top 5 in MVP voting. Statistically, he averaged over 30 points per game on unreal efficiency. He's a dominant force. The offensive game, he can get to the basket basically at will. The mid-range jumpers are also unstoppable, whether it's fading away alongside the baseline, it's pulling up right at the elbow. You can't really stop Shai. Teams had to send doubles, even triples sometimes, just to slow him down. The efficiency was ridiculous. He was grabbing boards, dishing out dimes. The defense also took a step for Shai, and I truly believe he has the potential to be one of the best two-way guards in this entire league for a long time. He was phenomenal this past season, and I'm someone who's always said that Shai was going to be a future MVP player, but to be honest, he even did it a bit sooner than I thought he was going to. I thought it might take another year or two, but this past season he emerged as that type of guy, and I think next year he's only going to get better. Every single offseason, Shai gets in the gym and works really hard on a brand new skill. Really the only weakness in his game, it feels like at this point, is the three-point shooting. He doesn't shoot them at a high volume while he does knock them down at a decent clip. If Shai can become a volume effective three-point shooter, there's really no way to stop him. Alongside him in the backcourt, we of course had Josh Giddey, who took a really solid sophomore leap, averaging 16.6 points per game, just under 8 boards and just over 6 dimes on much improved efficiency, which is the big swing factor for Giddey in determining how good he can really be. The big thing was that he learned how to take advantage of his size against other guards. A lot of times teams are defending him with guys that are 5, 6, 7 inches shorter than Josh Giddey is at 6'9", almost up to 6'10" at times it feels like. So he learned to back guys down all the way in the post, force the defense to send a couple of guys over, otherwise he's just going to hit a quick little push shot right over the defender. And because his playmaking is so good, when teams sent over help, he was able to swing it to the open man, and guys were able to knock down the shots, generating a lot of really quick and easy offense. That's the big plus with Josh, is that size that he has, and as he continues to learn how to use that and how to take advantage of it against the smaller opposition, he's only going to get better and better. The rebounding is of course also huge to what this team does, his ability to run in transition, him and Shai building that chemistry, his improved efficiency. Josh really just excelled in all areas that I was hoping he would in his sophomore season. On top of this, we got great play from Jalen Williams. That's the 12th overall pick, Jalen Williams, who finished second in Rookie of the Year voting and vastly improved every single month of the year. If you take a look at his numbers, it's startling how quickly he got better, how efficient he got. I mean, he was unstoppable at times. He showed off incredible offensive versatility, knocking down pull-up threes, catch and shoot threes, attacking the basket, hitting mid-range jumpers that felt very Shai-esque, as well as some crazy dunks, which is wild because I don't think he dunked once in college, if I remember that stat correctly, but he was throwing down some crazy posters out there. The athleticism is absurd, the defense too, his ability to get in passing lanes, his positional versatility, very often playing power forward for us throughout this season. Despite being more of a wing player, he is a Swiss Army knife of a guy, and it truly feels like he's got all-star potential. Alongside these 3 risers, we also had great play from a number of other guys. Lu Dort continued his great defensive play, earned some all-defensive votes, and was a big reason why OKC was a force on that end much throughout the season. Jalen Williams, the center, showed off a lot of great spacing as a big and started at our center position despite being a second-round pick and that not at all seeming like a possibility coming into the season. season. Isaiah Joe was picked up in free agency from the Sixers after they cut him, and was a huge boost as one of the league's best shooters, giving us a movement shooter and someone who could really well space the floor for Shai and Giddey, in addition to some other guys who contributed in various ways over the course of the season, like Aaron Wiggins, Kenrich Williams, who got hurt at the end of the year, and that was a big loss down the stretch. Really excited to see him back this upcoming season. Lindy Waters, Alexei Pokusevski, and a lot more guys. Everybody contributed at some point or another, not to mention Mark Daignault's fantastic coaching. He finished top 3 in Coach of the Year voting this past season. He allows the team to compete on both sides of the ball despite being really young and lacking the size of most other squads. All in all, it was a really successful year. Some people are going to say, oh, they didn't make the playoffs. Were they really that successful? It's a rebuild. It's going to take some time, and I think they took major strides that a lot of people weren't expecting so soon in this past season. While that's all cool, obviously the goal in this league is to eventually make the playoffs and win a title. And I think OKC is a lot closer to that than people are realizing. I think the Thunder are about to go from a really fun story in some people's eyes to a team that nobody wants to see their favorite squad play on a nightly basis. For a number of reasons, the NBA should be terrified of what the Thunder are about to become. As soon as this next season, I truly believe the Thunder are in a position to take another leap this upcoming year, and people aren't quite ready for what it's going to look like. It all begins, of course, with Shai, the head of the snake, a guy who was a top 5 player in the league this past season according to MVP votes. He's widely considered to be top 10 to 15 in the league. Some consider him even higher, and I think this is only his beginning. Like I said earlier, as a Thunder fan and a big Shai fan ever since he got traded here, even in his rookie season, I really liked his game. I've been saying ever since his second season in OKC that he's the franchise player and that he's a future MVP and eventually will be someone that you can build a championship team around. I think he's already there at this point. Again, he averaged 30 points per game. He's a threat to put up 35 and 5 on any given night on unreal efficiency, which I can even see that efficiency rising more again with that 3-point shot. If that comes along at all and he becomes a solid volume 3-point shooter, there will be no true way to stop his offensive game. Additionally, he took a jump this season to become, again, a solid defender, something that I think he can get even better at and eventually be an unstoppable two-way guard. In addition to all this, he's one of the most clutch players in this entire league and almost always rises to the occasion. He had multiple game winners. He had a crazy performance against the Pelicans in the first play-in game. Shai is one of those guys, and he's doing all of this by the age of 24. He's still 3-4 years away from what is most players' primes. Imagine what he's going to look like after 3 or 4 more seasons of growing and getting better, learning how opponents are going to defend him, learning to attack those defenses. Shai is going to be even more of a nightmare than he already is already. But not only do I think Shai is capable of taking another jump, I think there are also a lot of other guys on this young roster that are capable of winning this upcoming season too. The first guy that comes to mind is Josh Giddey. Again, he took a big jump from his rookie to sophomore season. Why can't he do it again in year 3? In particular, the 3-point shooting took a massive leap, going from like 26%-ish to around 32%, which isn't great, but I think there's another jump in there. I'm not saying he's going to take another 6% jump up to a 38% shooter and be lights out, but I do think he can get up to like the 35-36% mark, which is really good. Jumping 10% from your first year, third season would be a massive success. He's been continuously working with one of the best shooting coaches in the world who's currently on the OKC staff in Chip England. He's noted that as an area of his game he wants to work on, and I really do think by next season and beyond, Giddey's just going to continue to become a better and better shooter. And that combined with his ability to take advantage of smaller mismatches, his rebounding, which his instincts on offensive boards in particular are fantastic, his playmaking, Giddey's going to become a well-rounded offensive force in my opinion, and he's going to continue to work that way this season. Also, he's got, again, some pretty good physical tools for becoming at least a solid defender, which I think he can take another leap on as well this upcoming season. I'm excited to see how he and Shai continue to grow as well. Like, they've only had a year and a half as a backcourt together, even less than that to be honest, because each of them have suffered some injuries here and there. So they've got a full another offseason and this upcoming year to grow and learn and build chemistry together as a backcourt, which is really important in the league. And I think as they continue to get that experience, the duo of them only becomes more and more dangerous. Not to mention the potential sophomore leap that we could see from J-Dub, who was, again, phenomenal in his rookie season, especially for the 12th overall pick. And the rate at which he improved was staggering. I mean, you take a look at the numbers, he went from a 10.9 point per game average in November to averaging 19.8 points per game with 6.1 rebounds and 4.5 assists on 56.6% shooting from the field, 46.3% from deep, and 87.5% from the line. That's ridiculous. And that was over a 15-game sample size in March, which is decently significant. In my opinion, he was truly the biggest surprise of the season. I figured he was going to be good, but he looked like a future all-star from the get-go, and I think that is something that's in his future. It really feels like he could be someone that's sitting on those all-star teams alongside Shea and maybe Giddey or even Chet, who we're going to talk about in a moment. In the future, I really think he has that upside. And it's not just the offense, which we talked about, the efficiency, his ability to hit a variety of shots that look very Shea-esque, but also the defense. He led the entire NBA in steals, like total steals, every player, not just rookies, every player in steals since January 1st. He was a monster on that end. If these three guys progress even slightly, which I think they'll progress a lot more than that, but even if it's just a little, which I think is at least a given, the Thunder won 40 games this past season. Imagine the spot they could be in if those guys get even just a little bit better. And it's not just those three guys. We've talked about them a little bit, but I haven't talked much in detail about the fact that the Thunder are adding last year's second overall pick in Chet Holmgren to the lineup, a player who perfectly fits the archetype of guy that we need and helps build on our strengths in such a perfect way. The Thunder's biggest weakness this past season was a lack of size in the front court and also a bit of a need for shooting, which Chet does provide. He shot 39% from deep on over 3 attempts per game at Gonzaga and showcased similar numbers in his summer league games prior to his season-ending injury in that crossover Pro-Am game. This floor spacing is big for a Thunder team that really likes to attack downhill, in particular with Shea, and could use a bit of an extra outside punch. His post game is also something that the Thunder offense really didn't have this past season and adds a complete other element to what we do on that end. I think Chet's going to come in from day one and be a huge boost to the offense, allowing the Thunder to rise from 16th to potentially the verge of being a top 10 offense. And that's not even the number one aspect of his game, which is his defense. In his summer league games, he averaged 2.8 blocks per game, showing off incredible defensive prowess, instincts, versatility. The shot blocking ability is really something the Thunder did not have this past season. We were 22nd in the league in blocks per game, as well as 25th in rebounding percentage, which is also something that Chet's going to help with. He's going to shore us up a lot on that defensive end and give us some of that much needed size. It's going to make us a really formidable defensive squad. And we are already pretty solid. We sat at the end of the season tied for 13th in defensive rating with the Lakers. I think with Chet coming back into the fold of things and giving us a legitimate rim protector and one of the best defensive prospects in recent draft history, I'm not exaggerating on that, I think we could be pretty firmly a top 10, if not top 7 or even top 5 defense. It's not impossible, because in addition to adding Chet this offseason, we're also going to be adding Cason Wallace to this rotation, who is one of the best perimeter defenders in this entire draft class. We picked him up at number 10, and he's also going to provide a bit of an offensive boost as being another playmaker and ball handler on a Thunder roster that's full of them. This is the identity that the Thunder are trying to build, it seems like, a really solid defensive squad with guys all over the roster that can create plays for both themselves as well as others. Also, while I'm noting the draft, I do want to also mention Keontae Johnson, who we drafted with the 50th overall pick, and he's a big physical wing out of Kansas State who shot over 40% from deep this past season, giving us just another potential weapon. Bouncing back to the defense, we've also got Lou Dort, who's probably the guy you most think of when you think about the Thunder's defense, and for good reason. If you ask a number of players in the league, they're going to tell you Lou is one of the best defenders out there. I mean, he got all defensive votes this past season. It's what he does. He's been doing it since his rookie season when he locked up James Harden in the playoffs. He did it multiple times when we really needed it this past year against Kawhi Leonard in a big game against the Clippers towards the end of the season, against Brandon Ingram in the play-in game in one of the final possessions. Lou does this. He's a go-to guy to clamp up the opposing team's best score when you need him to on the most vital possessions. The hustle plays that he makes, he just really impacts winning. Now, the offense is inconsistent, and you definitely want to see it come around, but the defense that he provides is incredibly valuable to what we do. And a defense that features him, Cason Wallace, Chet, the growing defensive potential of Shea, of Jalen Williams, Williams and a number of other guys on this roster, the Thunder are going to be one of the best defensive teams in the league this upcoming season, and that's an identity they're really building towards. Our projected starting lineup of Shea, Giddey, Dort, Jalen Williams, and Chet is so much fun. And I'm not just saying that as a Thunder fan. I think anybody can note that that's an incredibly versatile and really interesting young lineup that we're going to be throwing out there on a nightly basis. But it's not just those five that make this team so intriguing this upcoming year. It's also the great cast of role players that OKC has built up over the past few off seasons. Guys like Isaiah Joe, who I mentioned, who's one of the best shooters in the entire league. That's not an exaggeration. Look at the numbers. Joe gives us movement shooting and someone that Shea and Giddey can continuously use as an outlet if need be. Poku showed some really solid defensive flashes last year, and if he can build some consistency on both ends, I think he's an intriguing piece for this upcoming season. Aaron and Kenrich Williams are both do-it-all wings who provide a lot of value on either side. Ousmane Dieng is more of a project player, but he did show some really solid flashes this past season, especially defensively, and when he was aggressive, the offense looked really interesting. I think he could be ready to contribute faster than people are giving him credit for. You've also got Jalen Williams, who again, that's Jalen Williams the big, coming off the bench, who provided us with some great spacing. He takes charges unlike anybody I've ever seen and gives a fun contrast to Chet when he checks in at the backup center spot. Trey Mann, if he bounces back from kind of a down sophomore season, could also provide some shot creation off the bench. It's a really fun and versatile young team all across the board in Oklahoma City that I think is going to stack up against some of the best in the NBA this upcoming season. And again, this is all backed by the great coaching of Mark Daigneault, who's a name that I think people are going to continue to learn over the course of these next few years. Again, he was already in top 3 in Coach of the Year voting this past season. I think he's going to be a contender once again when OKC makes this potential jump. They're poised, and with his coaching at the helm, I think they're ready to face whatever challenges are in front of them. He was able to turn last year's team, which lacked a lot of size and was really young, into one of the better defensive teams in the league. They were in the top half of the NBA, which is not something you typically see with rebuilding squads. Usually, those young teams are pretty disjointed on the defensive end. Wasn't the case with the Thunder, and again, he did that without a guy really taller than 6'10" really ever playing. In conclusion, between the rookie additions to this team, the projected growth of the young stars, and the solid foundation the Thunder already have, I fully expect this to be a playoff team this upcoming season, potentially skipping the play-in entirely if guys progress the way that I think they can. I truly think this is the year that everyone realizes just how terrifying this OKC team is going forward and why they can be one of the best teams in the league for a really long time, maybe starting this upcoming year. I know most people know this about the Thunder at this point, that we're coming and that we're a scary squad in the future, but I think the entire NBA world, even like the casual fans, are about to find out how good we can be. I don't think it's impossible that OKC is battling for home court advantage in a playoff series for a majority of the season. You might think that's a little crazy, but I genuinely mean it. I mean, when you just take a look at the numbers, it's clear how this team can progress to that level this upcoming season. If you think about it, we finished just 5 games behind the 4-seeded Suns this past year. If 5 of those games go our way, if Chet plays and he makes a 5-win difference, we're a top 4 seed in the Western Conference. We also lost 20 out of 42 games this past season that we lost by 6 points or less. So if Chet comes in and those other guys make that impact as they progress, if you flip even half of those losses back in our favor, we become a 50-win team, which would have put us as the 3rd seed in the West this past season. It's not unrealistic to think that the Thunder make a big-time jump and are one of the best teams in the West this year. They're going to be really solid defensively. I think the offensive potential as this core grows together is also capable of being fringe top 10. It's coming together. Now, of course, I do know that a lot of teams are going to get better over the course of this offseason, so I'm not thinking the Thunder are the only one. I'm not guaranteeing a 50-win season or anything like that, a top 4 seed, but I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility. What OKC is building is kind of here. Like, it's felt for the past few seasons that's going to take a little bit longer, but this past year showed that the Thunder are a lot closer than people realized. Shea said in a interview in his, I think it was his media day interview, he had this quote where he said that, you know, people have been talking about me wanting to be traded and things like that, but no, I want to stay in Oklahoma City, and I don't think we're going to be bad for very long. And he was right. Like, literally, this past season, the Thunder weren't bad. They were directly middle of the pack, 1 loss away from making the playoffs, despite being one of the youngest teams in NBA history. I'm sure some of you are going to comment down below saying that I'm biased, that I'm crazy, that the Thunder are going to be bad next season, which is something I heard going into this past year, and you see how that ended up turning out. So I just want to quickly say, don't be surprised when Shea is again an all-NBA first teamer, or at least in that conversation. I know there are a lot of great guards in the NBA. but I expect them to again be firmly in MVP talks, especially if the Thunder take the jump that I think they will. Don't be surprised when multiple other guys on the roster are mentioned at some point or another throughout the season in most improved player talks, when Chet is making Rookie of the Year very interesting alongside Victor Wembanyama and Scoot, and maybe even get some whispers of all defensive votes. I know it's really hard and very rare for rookies to get that type of honor. I'm just saying I think he could be at least in those conversations at some point during the season. And don't be surprised at the end of the year when the Thunder are in the playoffs and people are looking at them as a nightmare matchup going into a potential series. With all that being said, I appreciate y'all watching. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed, and hit the notification bell so you don't miss out on any of these videos. Go ahead and comment down below. What do you think the Thunder season is going to look like this upcoming year? Do you agree with me that they could be one of the better teams in the Western Conference? Do you think I'm overreacting a little bit to this past season? Also, what do you expect from Chet in his rookie season? Do you think Shea, Giddey, J-Dub, all these guys are capable of another leap? Also, if there are any other teams you want to see me break down, go ahead and comment down below. I have to go ahead and fill this offseason void somehow, so I want to make some breakdowns of some teams. I'll probably wait for most of them until after free agency and leading into the season itself, but OKC probably isn't going to go after any free agents, so I felt pretty good about making this video right here. But yeah, also, if you've got any other requests for videos, there's always a video submission link on a Google Sheet or Google form, whatever that's called, down below in the description too, so make sure to go check that out. Appreciate y'all watching again. I'll see y'all later. Real one, say it back.